I had been working in southern Sudan in 2000 for the UN and working with child soldiers and doing de-traumatization programs. And I don't know why at the time, but I got very, very sick. I think it was from a mosquito bite. So sick, in fact, that I had to be flown out of that part of the world back to Nairobi. I didn't recover very well and eventually came back to the UK and couldn't find the source of my illness, but I gradually got more and more unwell as the years went on. And I'm into health and wellness and yoga and fitness and natural medicine, so I did everything and a good diet, but still my body kept degrading. I started with arthritic symptoms, I had digestive problems, I had gynecological problems, I had fatigue problems. And so my body gradually got to the point where I couldn't even walk, and I'm a mountaineer, I couldn't walk up and down mountains anymore. I had to stop rock climbing. My life got smaller and smaller. And eventually it became much more serious, and I had blinding migraines for 5 days at a time. I was having problems with my heart in and out of the cardiac unit. Eventually I became paralyzed down my left arm. It just didn't work at all. I'd also got to a point where I couldn't think straight, that my mind was numb. We call it like a brain fog. And we tried everything. I'd been in and out of the School of Tropical Medicine in the UK, having tests and more blood tests. Nothing showed up that was wrong with me at all, but something must be wrong. And eventually a good friend of mine said, look, there's actually a medical clairvoyant in Holland. And that was my start of my journey to wellness, because she dragged me over here and drove me to this lady who took one look at me and said, look, yeah, you've got a few worms from your work in Africa and your work in India, but you have Lyme disease. So this is about 5 years ago now. I'd never heard of it. It was not in my repertoire I knew my tropical diseases, obviously, from working in these places, but I did not know about Lyme disease. It's not well known in Britain, starting to become more so now. And as a result of that, I came back and she said, look, it's beyond my scope. I can treat your other worms, but beyond my scope of what I can do for you. So I went home and started to research in the UK online. I'm a biochemist by training originally, so I like to do my scientific work. And as I gradually did this research, I began to think, oh dear, I'm in trouble. I have a problem. This is not just something that's going to go away with a couple of tablets. And of course, most of the internet will tell you, most of the doctors will tell you, and the research you do will say that antibiotics is the answer. But then you start looking at the research that says antibiotics is not the answer. And this is a growing concern. And many people are taking antibiotics and not having a full recovery. Add to that, I have an allergic reaction to two of the main categories of antibiotics. My body just rejects them. I have my throat swells up and I have major problems. So I knew that I would be limited. The drugs themselves would make me unwell if I went down that line. So I was in a dilemma. I have a serious disease. My arm is paralyzed. My brain doesn't work very well. I'm in and out of the hospital for cardiac problems and collapsing and fainting and passing out and all sorts of problems. I could walk about 10 steps before I collapsed. My life was reduced to a moronic state. And I thought, I don't really have much time left. I'd made my will. Sounds a bit dramatic, but I did. Because I knew my life force is so poor from all the work I do with energy. I knew there wasn't much left in me to fight. And that summer, by some grace, I call it God's grace or some intervention, I met Rohir and his wife were visiting our yoga centre in North Wales. And I said, oh, look, he said, oh, what's wrong with you? I said, oh, I have Lyme disease. He said, aha, come with me, get on the plane tomorrow, I'm going home. I'm like, okay. So I got on the plane the next day and came to the Netherlands, and friends looked after me. And I came to the clinic about 3 times a week. I think I was the first person to start doing that then, and out of necessity. And he started treating me. And within 4 months of intense treatment, a very difficult time indeed, I pulled through. Although there was about 3 or 4 weeks in, it was critical. But he managed to stabilize my organs and rebuild my strength enough to cope with the Herx reactions with the disease. And then gradually I started to build enough strength to be able to go back to the UK. And I had my own coal machine at home then. I got that and started working with that, coming back here every 3 or 4 months for treatment and to have a booster session. And then from that led on to getting more and more healthy. And I did a lot of work on myself and all the things that I know about nutrition and superfoods and all sorts of other ways to rebuild the organs, the liver, the kidney, the digestive tract, the brain. And gradually over a year, about 12 to 13, 14 months after my initial treatment, my brain switched on. I remember waking up one day saying, I can think again. So I was able to start work and actually write emails and book flights and do all the normal things that normal people do. So then about another year later of self-treatment and coming in and out of the clinic and getting advice from Rokia, I got to a point where I was completely cured. We came back, had all the tests. There's nothing extracellular, intracellular, there's no sign of it. And my health was fabulous. And I celebrated by going to the Dolomites with a couple of friends, and we were rock climbing 2,000 foot pitches to celebrate my health and wellness again. So that was from death's door to super health in about 2.5 years using this kind of vibrational informational medicine. I feel that here in this clinic, this form of medicine has a place in the future, a very strong position. So I'm now writing a book as a scientist, as a Lyme patient, who had a very dramatic journey, a very tough journey, but a completely successful journey of Lyme. I want to share with the world through my book that I'm writing, which talks about frequency medicine, energy medicine. It talks about the different kinds of technology that Rokia has here in the clinic, and how we can bring it together, not just here in Holland, but in Dubai. I have friends in Dubai. Dr. Jaziri, a heart surgeon at the Rashid Hospital, he's experimenting with this kind of technology. Sure, not when he's doing heart surgery, but he has another clinic where he's also developing this kind of medicine. I know that in places like Cuba, ozone is fantastic. There are pockets around the world where scientists and therapists and doctors and researchers like Rokia are starting to bring together the very best of informational, vibrational, sound, frequency medicine. And I think this is the way of the future. So that my book really is about that, how clinics can follow his example, can follow this methodology. He is pioneering the way, and hopefully in the next 10 years we will see clinics like this evolving around the world. Not instead of normal modern medicine. If I was in a car crash, I'm the first one, please take me to the hospital and put me back together. But as well as, and it has its place. In particular, I think with chronic diseases like Borrelia, with biotoxins, which we're just starting to see a massive outbreak. I know that Lyme is greater in the world now, bigger than breast cancer. And there's so much awareness on TV and on groups organising and fundraising for research for breast cancer. Where is it for Lyme disease? We need to make it prevalent. We need to get the message out there. And the message that antibiotics don't always work in the first instance and also later on.